UFC Fight Night Shanghai this Saturday, again from Shanghai Indoor Stadium in Shanghai, China. We've got a 12-fight card and a loaded main card with the final 3 bouts of the night. In the feature bout, Sergey Pavlovich takes on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Co-main, Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling. In the main event, Johnny Walker versus Mingyang Zhang in the light heavyweight division. So again, 12 fights in total on this card from Shanghai, China, early in the morning on Saturday. I believe the prelims start at midnight, if I'm not mistaken. Prelims start at midnight on Friday night, so main card is at like 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. I think I got that right. Yeah, definitely. So before we get to the video, folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC and PFL content here on the channel tomorrow. We're going to have our PFL Edwards versus Rosta full card predictions for the final PFL Championships card of the year. Go make sure to check that out tomorrow on the channel, probably 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And on Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning, we'll have our week 2 of the Contender Series predictions, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern time, our Contender Series predictions here on Greedo Plays MMA. Wednesday, we're going to have our Road to UFC predictions. Normally, I wouldn't do Road to UFC, but there's 2 UFC fights actually on the Road to UFC cards. We're going to talk about that on Wednesday, and then Thursday we will have our best bets for UFC Shanghai. So we'll have content for you throughout the entire week, Sunday through Thursday here on Greedo Plays MMA. And this week on Greedo Plays, not only do we have our MLB best bets, but college football season is back as well. Tomorrow we will have our college football week 0 predictions on Greedo Plays, about 4 p.m. Pacific, same time as the PFL predictions, maybe like an hour before. Go make sure to check that out on the main channel, Greedo Plays. Go subscribe to that channel, go subscribe to this channel. Okay, on to the first of our 12 fights today, or on Saturday in Shanghai, China. The first being a matchup in the light heavyweight division, the only fight so far with no odds. I am recording this before Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev, just because I need to get this done earlier. So I'm recording this like literally an hour before the prelims start. I hope du Plessis won. I don't know. Either I looked really stupid or really dumb. No, not that. Stupid or smart. Maybe I look stupid and dumb. I don't know. Anyways, you know definitely by watching this video. Go DDP. Our first fight of the night is a matchup in the light heavyweight division. Satybaldiev, I butcher his name a lot. He's coming off of a loss to Marcin Budaj, taking on Nurgozhay, who's coming off his first fight in the UFC. It was a Kimura loss to Brennison Hibeto. So 2 fighters getting their second opportunity here in the UFC, coming off disappointing debuts. And I don't care, Uran lost to Marcin Budaj, who I guess was ranked or was kind of ranked, and the UFC dropped him. What is he going to? Is he going to KSW now? Or is Octagon? One of the two. He's fighting for the belt over in Octagon or KSW. I think it's Octagon. Anyways, Uran loses to Marcin Budaj. Budaj then gets cut from the UFC in a couple months later, after Budaj's next fight. But anyways, Marcin Budaj beats Uran in a very boring fight. Nothing happened. Legitimately nothing happened. It was disappointing out of Uran that he wasn't able to show, that striking ability and that just all around grappling ability as well that he showed in LFA. I mean, this was the LFA heavyweight champion or light heavyweight champion. Dominates a guy and wins by Kimura in his last fight in LFA. Comes in short notice, albeit into the UFC, up at heavyweight, but you're expecting, all right. These light heavies, a lot of them can fight heavyweight. And again, how much success they're going to have, I don't know. But don't forget, Jailton Almeida, is a guy who was looked at as a 205er / all right, maybe he can go up to heavyweight, right? He had fought a lot of light heavyweight over in the regionals in Brazil. Eventually, stays at heavyweight because that's just what fit him best. But he's like a 220-pound light heavyweight who they, at one point, did catch weight fights at 225 for. My point being, Uran came into the Budaj fight at 222, and Budaj was just too big for him, essentially. Budaj won a lot in the clinch, and ultimately Budaj just out-controls and I guess outstrikes Uran to victory. Now, his opponent, Nurgozhay, is coming off of the loss to Brennison Hibeto, in which he got submitted in the second round via a Kimura. So both guys, obviously Uran with the Kimura win in LFA. Got submitted by a Kimura against Hibeto. You were a minus 400 favorite, you missed weight by 5 pounds, and again, you lost to Brennison Hibeto. You get dropped by Brennison Hibeto. I mean, I don't know what to expect in this one. So Nurgozhay from Kazakhstan, Uran from Kyrgyzstan. I'm gonna go with Uran. Again, I was disappointed with Uran's fight at 265 just because I felt like he was going to be able to hang there. He's a 6'4" light heavyweight. 80-inch reach. Again, a guy who is, can get to 205, obviously, but a guy I thought, could hang at that 230-ish mark. Obviously didn't really have to cut for the Budai bout at all. But ultimately, what's worse? Uran, who lost, again, Budai's on the best, but Uran lost up a weight class to a top 15 guy, or a Dayar, who lost to Brandon Sinibero, who is Brandon Sinibero, got knocked down and then subbed with a Kimura. Yeah, I'm going to take Uran all day long in this spot. I also do just think Uran's better. LFA champion. Dayar won on the Contender Series. I just don't care, won the Contender via knockout. We didn't see any of that against Hubbard, and he missed weight in that fight as well. He did not look good. I'm going to take Uran, who also, again, had his last fight against Budai on short notice. I believe Uran's going to win, and I do believe we get a TKO. I do believe he's going to find a way to either the knockdown or the takedown. I just don't think Dayar's that great. I'm going to take the fighter from Kyrgyzstan here. I'm going to take Uran Satybaldiev by second round TKO to open up the card here at midnight on Saturday, Friday night, Saturday morning. Give me Uran to win the fight by second round TKO. I just believe he's going to be bigger and he's going to be able to impose his will more. So give me Uran. On to our second fight of the night. We move to a matchup now in the bantamweight division between Xiao and Su Young Yu. Yu the favorite in this bout at -170. Xiao coming back at the about a +135 line. Xiao has had a million professional fights. He just has. And of course, we're going to see a lot of Chinese fighters in this card. So Xiao being the first of that, he'll be taking on, Korea's own or South Korea's own and Su Young Yu. For Xiao, again, this is a guy who's just had a million pro fights and he's 27 years of age. We're going to see the same example later on the card with Rongzhu, who's going to be fighting Austin Hubbard. And it's actually more extreme in his case. But Xiao is 27 years of age, and this will be walk number 37 for him into a professional mixed martial arts fight. That's crazy. He's been knocked out 3 times in the past, and this guy started professionally fighting in 2016. So it hasn't even been 10 years, and this is going to be fight number 37. It's just insane. Some of these guys in the Chinese regional, the regionals, they fight all the time. It's actually insane. But for Xiao, 1-1 in the UFC, did go on the road to the UFC, won 2 fights over there, but ended up losing in the finals to Chang Ho Lee by split decision. Lee's the guy who's coming off a win over Cortavius Romeus in his last one. Anyways, Xiao, since the Lee fight, goes out and beats Kwang Lee by knockout in the 3rd round. That was, I believe, in the last China card, if I'm not mistaken, back in November. Yes, it was, on the Yan Figueiredo card in Macau, China. Xiao wins that fight by 3rd round knockout, and now here he is about a year off, and he gets Su Young Yu. Yu's coming off a win early in the year against AJ Cunningham, won his first fight in the UFC over the road to UFC competitor Barajing Gilesi, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. That guy wasn't very good. Now, the AJ Cunningham victory, it's all right. Cunningham, again, mixed bag in the UFC, right? Got to debut against Ludovic Klein, obviously got destroyed, and then Su Young Yu goes out there and just dominates him with the wrestling. Su Young Yu, not the most entertaining guy at all, but he wins. He's like, this is going to be a weird comp, he's like Archie Colgan. Good fighter, just you're not going to be paying top dollar to watch him fight. Now, Archie Colgan, by the way, don't get me started on that. Why would you, PFL, why would you make a #1 contenders fight between Colgan and Mansoor Barnawi and then end up just giving the fight to Paul Hughes instead? Like, I'm not against it. I'm so glad we're getting that fight. But you just screwed Archie Colgan, and you're going to make Archie Colgan fight JJ Wilson on the same card? It's insane. Like, stick to what you're doing. They should have just never made Archie Colgan versus Mansoor Barnawi a #1 contenders fight, and I would not be mad. It's stupid. Anyways, Su Young Yu is legit. He doesn't fight like Archie Colgan. Well, it kind of doesn't throw many strikes. Doesn't have the power Archie Colgan has, because if Archie Colgan really lets go, he can fire off big overhands. Su Young Yu doesn't really do that. But Su Young Yu, he's not going to take many chances. He's just going to try to wrestle, and he's going to try to hold you down. If it's an output wrestler who's looking to shoot. He gets Xiao in this one. I don't think Xiao's ready for this. I don't think so. Everyone shoots on Xiao. We saw this in the road to the UFC. We've seen it, on the Contender. I guess Kenyon has shot a couple times. Kwang Lee tried to shoot on Xiao. It's just what fighters try to do against him. Su Young Yu, that's all he does. He just wrestles, he scrambles, and he's going to keep shooting, and he's going to keep persisting that he gets these takedowns, right? The AJ Cunningham fight, he shoots 10 takedowns, gets half of them. Well, okay, that results in 8 minutes of control time, right? First fight in the UFC, 5 minutes of control time. It's a big part of his game. Hell, the dude's nickname is Jiu-Jitsu. It's wrestling, it's control time. Again, he's not a huge guy for bantamweight, like Archie Colgan. Oh, Colgan's like 5'8". Again, he needs to stop making the Su Young Yu Archie Colgan reference or comp, but Yeah, Su Young Yu is not a guy who's going to go out there and, outstrike you. That's not really what he does. He's a smaller guy for bantamweight. He's 5'6". But, I mean, you don't really need much size. You just need strength if you're going to wrestle and try to out-grapple guys. And that's exactly what he's going to do. Not impressed, really, with China's Long Xiao. So I guess we're going to keep track of China's record tonight on this Fight Night card. They will start 0-1 because I believe Su Young Yu is going to go out here and get a decision victory over Long Xiao. Expect a lot of wrestling. Expect this to be kind of boring. So thankfully, it's early on the night. So... I'm not going to be falling asleep, and I need to make it to the Aljamain Sterling fight, obviously, and I will definitely make it to the Aljamain Sterling fight. So, yeah, good thing this fight's going to be at, 12:30. I'm not going to be too tired yet. If they put this fight at, 5 in the morning, though. If this was a Singapore card, ooh, we'd be screwed. It's okay. Give me Su Young Yu by unanimous decision. Nothing against Singapore. Those cards just air later. Okay, on to our third fight of the night. Let's move to the biggest favorite on this card, and it's crazy. Yizha is a minus 1,400 favorite to beat Simpsonville, South Carolina's own in Weston Wilson. Okay, I don't see a world where Weston Wilson wins, but these odds are ridiculous. Guys, Yizha's 1-2 in the UFC? He's 0-2 in the UFC. Technically, those are 2 road to the UFC finals. No, 1 road to the UFC final, and then he lost to Gabriel Santos in his last bout. Yizha should not be this big of a favorite against anybody. He shouldn't be. You could draw a local high school wrestler, and Yizha should not be a minus 1,400 favorite. Okay, this is ridiculous. He's going to beat Weston Wilson, and obviously, right, I mean, you'd have some damn balls to pick Simpsonville, South Carolina's own in this one. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's guy here in Weston Wilson. But these odds are crazy, especially because Weston Wilson's actually going to have a 6-inch height advantage. That's not going to really matter because in terms of reach, Weston Wilson's only got 2 inches on Yizha. So, how Weston Wilson fights, right? It's that karate base. It's just the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson karate base on the feet. He's not very good at it. He's a long, lanky guy, and then he's going to, for the most part, look to grapple you. So, again, he'll set up in that karate, again, how Wonderboy hops. Like what Weidman tried to do a little bit too at the end of his career. But, again, it's Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. It's the in and out, glancing strikes, right? That's what Weston Wilson's going to do. He's going to try to use that little side kick as well. But everything Weston Wilson does, unlike Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, obviously, everything Weston Wilson's going to do is going to try to get into grappling range and trying to scramble and get to that ground positioning. And ultimately, that's what happened in his last fight. He beats Jekka by first-round sub. Surprisingly, he was a plus 280 dog, and he goes out there and wins the fight by triangle armbar. So yes, Weston Wilson's coming off of a victory, and he's still a plus 680 underdog. That's crazy. But his first 2 fights in the UFC weren't good. However, okay, he fought Joe Anderson, Brito, and Jean Silva. Oh, it's just, I don't think Weston Wilson's good because his striking is very bad. It just is. And then his grappling, it's not good enough to carry him in fights. But why is he this big of a dog here? There's something we don't know. And yeah, Weston Wilson's 36. And that's old for 145 pounds, especially when you're a 145-pounder who's only had 3 fights in the UFC. You're 1-2. I get that. Yizha's 0-2 and just lost to Gabriel Santos. And that's not a bad loss at all. It's not like Yizha's elite. That's my point. Can he knock out Weston Wilson? Sure he can. He's had 6 road to the UFC fights, and he hasn't knocked down anybody. Now again, Weston Wilson would be that guy, but Yizha doesn't knock anybody out in general. Last time Yizha knocked anybody out, it was a very long time ago. On the feet, he hasn't knocked anybody out since 2018, and that was over a 4-16 Spaniard who came into China to fight him. Yeah. I'm going Yizha by decision. I believe actually Weston Wilson's going to go the distance. I think Yizha's going to outclass him. I just don't think he's got the power to put him out. I think Yizha's going to win a lot of striking exchanges. On the ground, too, yeah, that's Weston Wilson's thing. Okay, it's Yizha's thing, too. Yizha's a grappler. Is his grappling good enough to submit Wilson? I'm actually going to go no. I think Wilson's going to be able to, stay out of some precarious positions. Ultimately, I believe Yizha wins the bout by unanimous decision, which is kind of a shocking pick, I'll be honest with you, because, again, for how, let's just say it, how bad Wilson's been in the UFC. But, again, this guy is coming off a victory. You got to give him credit for that. I am going to go, though, with his opponent in Yizha to win the fight by unanimous decision. I think Yizha's going to win the striking exchanges. I don't think he's got the power to put him down. And on the ground, too, I believe Yizha's slightly better, and he's 8 years younger. Give me the Chinese fighter, Yizha, to beat Weston Wilson by unanimous decision. On to our 4th fight of the night. We move to a matchup here, and in the middleweight division, and a returning fighter, Kyle Daukaus. Welcome back into the UFC, and welcome back, you get Michel Pereira. Hear me out, it's a winnable fight for Daukaus. It really is. It's a legitimately winnable fight for Kyle Daukaus. Will he do it? I don't know. Daukaus 15-4 professionally, right? First run in the UFC wasn't great. He went 2-4, okay? Comes in, first fight in the UFC, loses to Brendan Allen on short notice. Actually not that bad of a fight in the Apex. Comes back, beats Dustin Stulcis by unanimous decision, loses to Phil Hawes, submits Kevin Holland, but then doesn't because the only reason he got the submission was because of a headbutt. Anyways, comes back and beats Jamie Pickett, and then Daukaus proclaims himself the Darce Knight, and he's still going by that nickname because of that Darce choke win. Then lose to Ramon Dolidze, lose to Eric Anders, and they cut him. Goes into CFFC, wins 4 straight fights, defends the CFFC championship a couple times, and now here he is back in the UFC against Michel Pereira. It's just a tough fight for him to come back in. It just is. It's a difficult fight. It is a winnable fight, though, because you know what Kyle Daukaus is going to do. He's going to try to wrestle. I mean, he's the Darce Knight, right? That's his move, and his entire thing is trying to get you down to the mat and trying to grapple you. Okay, well, Anthony Hernandez did that to Michel Pereira. I get it, though. Fluffy's a whole nother animal. I mean, Fluffy's getting comps to, like, you know, he's what prime Colby Covington was at 185 pounds. Well, I think that's kind of true. I don't think Fluffy's that good. Fluffy is great, though, right? And that's what Daukaus is going to have to try to do against Michel Pereira. It's wrestle. It's to outpace him. And I get it. Hernandez eventually broke Pereira in the 5th round. But Daukaus is just going to have to do it in 3. And Daukaus is going to have to look for the takedown. Daukaus will need to try to get Pereira down to the mat by any means necessary. However, no one's really had that much success grappling Pereira other than Fluffy Hernandez. That's what made that fight so impressive, because nobody's dominated Pereira on the ground. This is a guy with the 76% takedown defense rate in the UFC. Yeah, I don't entirely see, you know, but honestly, Pereira lost to Abus Magomedov. But the thing is, will Kyle Daukaus outstrike Pereira? No, he's not. Okay, I get it. He's coming off a knockout victory when he last defended his CFFC title. That's great and all. I don't think that's going to completely translate, especially against a guy like Pereira who has good enough striking. Yes, Abus Magomedov outstruck Michel Pereira. Abus is actually kind of high level. People just don't give him credit for being so because, he, you know, lost to Strickland, lost to Borjas. The guy's only losses in the UFC are Borjas and Strickland, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people next month when he fights Joe Pyfer. I believe so. We'll get to that when we get there. I think it's a really good chance Abus beats Joe Pyfer. That's Pereira's last 2 losses. He went on a big winning streak. His last loss prior to those was like the Tristan Connolly fight back in Vancouver in 2019 or the Diego Sanchez DQ loss. So Pereira has been on a run. I just don't think Daukaus is going to be able to win. There is a pathway, don't get me wrong, but that pathway is extremely difficult because we have seen grapplers like Daukaus. Who's better, Petrosky or Daukaus? That's tough, and honestly, that's a fight I would like to see Daukaus get next. 2 CFFC guys. Petrosky from Philly. They're both from Philly. Yeah, I think that'd be great, actually. I think Petrosky's from Philly. Pretty sure he is. Right? Like, that's what I would do next, honestly, unless they train together. They might train together. I don't know. Do they train together? No. Daukaus trains out of a very small gym. Yeah, I think, like, that would be a fight that I wouldn't mind seeing. Because if Petrosky's not able to take down Pereira, and Pereira obviously knocked him out early, I don't think Daukaus is going to be able to do the same. And again, it's great Daukaus' run. He was getting beat in the UFC, albeit against good guys. Allen, Dolidze's a top 10 guy. Eric Anders. But Michel Pereira is kind of on that level of an Anders, or better than an Anders, right? Like Phil Hawes, you know. Pereira will be able to beat Kyle Daukaus. It's just a matter of how. I believe it's going to be a knockout. Daukaus is taking short notice, and I believe, again, if Pereira is able to find his groove in the feet, he will get going. I'm actually going first round TKO for Michel Pereira. I'm going late first round TKO. I think Daukaus won't be able to get a takedown early, and eventually Pereira is going to find a way to get that finish. I forget how big Daukaus is. He is 6'3", 76-inch reach, but I'm still going with the Brazilian and Michel Pereira to win the fight by first round TKO. On to our next bout, our 5th fight of the night, if I'm not mistaken. We move to a matchup, and we spoke about him a little bit earlier. We go to the lightweight division. Rongzhu takes on Austin Hubbard. So like we were mentioning with Long Xiao earlier on the card, some of these guys in the Chinese regional scene just have a million fights. Rongzhu is the definition of that. He has 32 professional fights at 25. It's crazy. He's 2-3 in the UFC. This is his second stint in the promotion. Came in at a very young age. Went 1-2. Lost to Kazula Vargas. Beat Brandon Jenkins. Lost to Ignacio Bahamondes. Comes back. Wins a fight in UAE Warriors. Wins the road to the UFC. Comes back and loses to Chris Padilla, who, by the way, who said Padilla was winning that fight as like a +2 something underdog? That was me. And then Rongzhu beats Cody Steele. Needed that fight to get back on the right track. He's a +280 dog in this Steele fight. Steele was undefeated at the time, and Rongzhu came out there and beat him by decision. Got to give Rongzhu a lot of credit. Outpaced Cody Steele. It was a very good fight, but knocked down Steele and really showed him, styled on him on the feet, essentially. This fight feels like a very winnable fight for Rongzhu, and I'll tell you what this is. This is a fight that can get him a victory in China. It is, right? So as of now, on our predictions, we have the Chinese fighters at 1-1, right? Yizha winning and Long Xiao losing. This fight's really set up for Rongzhu to win. Austin Hubbard's a guy as well in his second stint in the UFC. He's 4-7 in the promotion. The second stint, he's 1-3. He's fighting for the contract tonight or on Saturday. Got to the finals of the Ultimate Fighter, ultimately lost by triangle choke to Kurt Holloway. Beats Michael Figlak right after, then loses to Alexander Hernandez in a close fight, even though I thought Hernandez won, and then loses a close fight to Markel Medeiros, even though, right, a lot of people thought Medeiros won that fight. Hubbard, wrestled, but didn't do anything with the wrestling. Pretty easy rounds 1 and 3 for Medeiros. Hubbard is back and he gets Rongzhu. Okay, the pathway for a Hubbard is clear. And I'm not telling you he's going to do it, but the game plan and the blueprint, I mean, it can never be more obvious for Austin Hubbard. We were talking about how we thought Cody Steele was going to go out there and try to outgrapple Rongzhu and potentially submit Rongzhu, because, again, the pathway might be there because of Rongzhu's struggles on the ground in the past, right? You look at the fight that he had in his final road to the UFC victory. We looked at the bout that he had against Ignacio Bahamondes where he got subbed, right? Like, that was going to be a pathway for Steele. It was either that or, obviously, Steele had some decent striking going into the UFC as well. We still haven't seen him since the Rongzhu fight in February. Anyways, the pathway is clear for Hubbard. You have to wrestle Rongzhu. Because on the feet, I just don't think Hubbard's going to hang. I look at what Rongzhu did against Cody Steele, in all fairness, right? Stuffs the takedowns. I believe Steele only had one of them, right? He goes 1 for 4 in his takedowns. Rongzhu stuffs him, and Rongzhu on the feet just outpaces Cody Steele. Gets in his face, out-volumes Steele, eventually drops Steele as well. Again, a very good bout that Rongzhu gets by decision. Now, the Chris Padilla fight, Padilla's really good. And Padilla doesn't get the credit that he deserves just because he came into the UFC so late. It was a doctor stoppage victory. Padilla's coming off a split decision victory over Jai Herbert. Where is the guy? He's 29. Actually, I don't know why I thought Padilla was older. It's just because he had lost a lot prior to the UFC. Anyways, he's been a pro since 2014. He's been damn, I guess since 18. That's crazy. But there's no shame in losing into Padilla if you're Rongzhu. Won the road to the UFC, beats Cody Steele. I don't really see much trouble he's going to have against Hubbard. As long as he's able to stuff takedowns, he's going to win. And again, he did that against Cody Steele. Steele wanted to wrestle. Rongzhu didn't allow for the fight to go down there. And again, I will assume that Austin Hubbard will try the same exact thing. I don't think Austin Hubbard's going to be successful in doing so. Hubbard's a guy who has not seen the most success after coming back to the UFC. The only victory, right? A decision win over Figlak. Back-to-back losses, and sure, were they close fights? Yes. Did I think Hubbard won either of those? No. There's a difference between getting robbed and just having close fights. Hubbard just had close fights where I don't even see I don't know how you score some of these fights for him. They're close fights, but I didn't think he got the right end of it. And obviously, right, the judges ultimately concluded that he didn't. So I am going to be going with Rongzhu to win the fight. I feel like it is a no-brainer that he goes out here and wins. I think there's going to be I think it's going to be pressure striking. I think he's going to get in the face of Austin Hubbard for most of this bout, and I just don't think Hubbard's going to be able to shoot and wrestle his way out of that. On the feet, I believe, again, Rongzhu's just better. He should have volume Hubbard, and I think he will win an easy decision. I could see a late round finish. I'm just going to go with a dominant performance out of Rongzhu, sending the Chinese fighters to 2-1 on this card, even though I believe, yes, Rongzhu trains out of Auckland, New Zealand. But anyways, the Chinese-born fighters go to 2-1. He's a CKB guy, I think, right? I think he cross-trains. But yeah, he has been training out of CKB. Give me Rongzhu to send the Chinese fighters to 2-1 on this card after a unanimous decision victory over the American Austin Hubbard. Okay, on to our next fight. We go to the flyweight division, a fight that I believe is very close to pick and very tough to pick. Lonnie Kavanagh versus Charles Johnson. I think I don't know. I feel like might be one of the only people who's just not impressed with Lonnie Kavanagh at all. Is that a hot take? I don't think he's that great. His 2 victories have been all right, but it's like he's barely gotten by in both. And sure, these are tough guys, but I think for what the UFC has hyped Kavanagh to be and what they want Kavanagh to be, I think they've been kind of underwhelming performances. And I'm going to tell you why I believe this fight's difficult for him tonight on Saturday against Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson's going to have 5 inches of reach on him. Not inches of reach. 5 inches of height on Lonnie Kavanagh. And I believe the reach is going to be, it's going to be a 4-inch reach advantage for Johnson as well. But here's the thing. Charles Johnson is 74. He's 34. My goodness. 70, I don't know why. 70-inch reach. He's 34 years of age. It's hard to outstrike this guy. It really is. It's difficult to outstrike him. His last fight against Timarov, it's competitive. You can make the case Johnson maybe wins, but really not. He dominates the 3rd round, right? The first 2 rounds are competitive. Johnson takes over in the 3rd, but ultimately you don't win the fight just because of a 3rd round, right? Johnson, though, look at the Sumudaerji fight. Sumudaerji's going to be on later in this card, obviously. Charles Johnson goes out there, outstrikes Sumudaerji, knocks down Sumudaerji. Josh Van, guys, has 1 loss in the UFC. You know who that 1 loss is to? Charles Johnson. Josh Van's fighting for a world championship in December against Alexandre Pantoja. Charles Johnson beats Jake Hadley. By the way, he knocks down all 3 of those guys, Mudaerji, Van, and Hadley. He's a difficult guy to beat. He really is. And Lonnie Kavanagh, I think he's going to have to wrestle here, because if there's not a wrestling game plan in this for Lonnie Kavanagh, I think he's going to lose. So if Lonnie Kavanagh's active early in the fight, he can probably take it. Because sometimes, and like we saw in the Ode Osborne fight a while ago for Charles Johnson, if you can go at him early and you can see success early in the fight, then you might be able to steal against him. Like what Ode did. Ode won the 1st round, and then Ode wrestled as the fight went on, and he got the judges to score the fight his way. I actually thought Osborne Picasso, deserved the victory in that fight. Right? So Johnson, here's the thing, right? He's got losses to Ode Osborne, but then he's also got wins over Josh Van. It's a mixed bag. It's a complete mixed bag. So the game plan for Lonnie Kavanagh is right. You got to mix in your wrestling, but I think early in the fight for Kavanagh, he has to be aggressive. Lonnie Kavanagh has to look to strike. He has to try to pour it on early against Johnson, because once Johnson gets going, I think Johnson's going to see a lot of success. Can he set the takedowns is the question as well. I'm actually going to go, yeah. Like, Charles Johnson, other than the Cody Durden fight, nobody's really just dominated him wrestling-wise, right? Guys will give him trouble on the ground, like an Ode Osborne, like a Josh Vanson, like an Azat Maskum, like Temirov, right? These guys are going to give Johnson fits down there. But no one's been able to just completely dominate and control him like Durden did a while ago. So I don't think that's going to be there for Kavanagh. I think, again, right, it's going to be a mixture of it. It's going to be like, all right, I can take you down. I'm going to, make you worry about it. But it's not going to be simply, oh, Kavanagh's just going to win the fight because of the wrestling. He's going to need to outstrike Johnson too early in the fight, and I don't see it happening. I think Charles Johnson's too good for Kavanagh. I don't see the hype yet with him. He's 26, he's young, and sure, right, Felipe dos Santos, tough guy. Jose Ochoa, tough guy. He barely won both of those bouts. And it's just the way the UFC's hyped this guy. I watched him on the Contender, and they were really high on Kavanagh. And he looked good on the Contender, right? He knocked out Antoine Ho, who I believe is going to be on the Contender later this year. They've just been really high on the guy. I'm not. I think he can be good, but he's 26, and it's just, he hasn't wowed me in his first 2 fights in the UFC. I believe this is the perfect, I don't want to call it a fraud check, but it's a perfect, just upset and underdog pick here in Charles Johnson to go out here. And I guess I can call it, he can just check Lonnie Kavanagh here. I'm going to go with Johnson and win the fight, right? Lonnie Kavanagh bears the Chinese flag. I believe he's from Hong Kong? I could be wrong, or he just trains in China. Regardless, I'm going to be going with the American here. I'm going to count Lonnie Kavanagh as kind of Chinese. We're going to go Chinese fighters move to 2-2 on this card, at least fighters who represent China. I'm going Charles Johnson by decision. I believe his striking is going to be too good for Lonnie Kavanagh. I don't think Lonnie Kavanagh is going to be able to overtake the fight simply just with grappling. So give me Charles Johnson to outstrike Lonnie Kavanagh. I think he's very underrated for this weight class, and he's going to look huge compared to Kavanagh in this fight. Johnson 5'9", Kavanagh 5'4". Give me the American. Let's move on now to our next fight. I believe, are we on the main card yet? I think we might be. No, I believe this is the featured prelim. Yes, it is, I think. Maheshate takes on Gage Young, and Maheshate's an underdog here, which is a little surprising to me. I would have thought he would be favored in this one. Young has had one fight in the UFC so far. It was a loss in his first ever bout. Took the fight on relatively short notice, if I'm not mistaken. Ended up losing by unanimous decision to Evan Elder. Young now own one in the UFC. This is a guy in Young, and I'll get to Maheshate in a second. This is why I don't understand the odds. Again, tightly contested odds-wise, right? Gage Young a -120 favorite. Maheshate coming back at you a +100. Okay, I get that. Gage Young never wowed me on the regional scene. He fought in FAC. Okay, I've learned my lesson with FAC, or at least I've just learned by, just James Krause in general and just, following guys who are from that promotion. There's a bunch of cans in FAC. I don't think James Krause runs it anymore because I don't know if he's going to, as Dana White said, federal prison. I don't know if that's happening because of the gambling thing. But FAC, like, Cage Titans, the one in New England, it's been known for, and Titan FC too in the past. Titan doesn't really run cards anymore, but they will match make their guys in very winnable bouts against guys who have losing records, just so they can get their guys in the UFC eventually. We've seen it before with FAC, and sure, they've turned out good talent. Like, look at Grant Dawson, obviously, but I'm not wowed with what Gage Young has done so far. To the point where, again, if he wasn't a -120 favorite, I wouldn't really bat an eye. And I wouldn't be going on this long rant about it. Just because he's favored, that's why I just don't get it. Because look at what he's done in the regional scene. In the UFC/contender, he's 0-2. He gets a shot in 2024 against Killian Salkid, and he loses that fight on the contender by unanimous decision. Now, Salkid, right, has come into the UFC. He knocks out Anshel Jubli in 19 seconds, and then he beats Yanshel Ashmoz in his last fight in Newark, New Jersey. But Gage Young loses that fight, comes back to FAC, beats a 6-4 fighter in the main event of an FAC card, right? It's just, who are these guys he's beating? They're nobodies, right? And that's what I just don't like out of FAC fighters. Look at even his fights prior to the contender. He loses to Bobby Lee back in 2022, who's a 12-7 fighter. Then beats Manny Murrow by TKO in the second round. And Murrow's a guy who had fought in Bellator before, but beats him by TKO. And then comes out, beats a 2-7 guy. You're 6-1 fighting a 2-7 fighter. Huh? And then you fight a 5-5 fighter, beat him by knockout. Then you go to the contender, you lose. And then you come back and fight a 6-4 guy. And then you lose to Evan Elder in your last fight. Evan Elder, Gage Young wasn't a horrible fight. It was in Kansas City, Missouri. Elder just beats him to the punch every single time, right? I wouldn't call it all out, but it is a striking fight. It's contested only on the feet. And Evan Elder beats Gage Young to the punch. He just does. He outstrikes him 115-81, significant strike total. But Evan Elder, right, just does more damage, wins every single round, takes it 30-27. A competitive fight, but a competitive 30-27 win, right? Maheshate hits hard. He does. Maheshate has been a loser in 3 of his last 4 bouts, and his last fight against Nicholas Mota in China was bad. But I think this is where I don't mind a fighter taking, 10 months off. And that's what Maheshate did, right? Losing in November, he's back now in August because he took so much damage in the Mota fight. Mota drops him twice, Mota dominates the bout, and Maheshate, who was fighting at home, ultimately lost every single round of that fight. The closest round is the second, but Mota is just doing more damage with his strikes than Maheshate is. Maheshate's win over Gabriel Benitez isn't the best. He beats him by split decision, but he does win. Prior to that, got dropped 3 times in one fight by Vyacheslav Borshev. Rafa Garcia beat him because he out-wrestled him. The Maheshate victory that keeps on aging better and better, though, is the win that he has against Steve Garcia. He beat Steve Garcia in Singapore in June of 2022, knocks him down 2 times in the span of 60 seconds, and then knocks out Steve Garcia and puts him away. Since then, right, he has lost 3 of 4, and the one fight was very competitive and could have gone either way against Benitez in the Apex. It's tough to call. It's a really difficult fight for me to pick. I'm going to ever so slightly go with Maheshate. Just because I don't think Gage Young has the power to put him down. That's what's really hurt Maheshate. I mean, his last 3 fights, he's been knocked down 5 times, right? I don't think Gage Young has that power, personally. I know he's got 6 knockout wins. He's got 6 knockout wins against absolute scrubs. Let's just call it how it is. He's beaten nobodies to get those knockouts. Since he's gotten to the UFC/contender, He's been outstruck in every single one of those. Well, Sal Kid outgrappled him. But Sal Kid at the same time was winning the striking exchanges. But Evan Elder, here's the thing. I don't want to go after Evan Elder, but if Evan Elder's outstriking you, Maheshate should probably be able to do the same thing. I think it's competitive, but I do believe what's going to happen here, I think Elder's going to be the one, or sorry, not Elder, Young's going to be the one pouring on the pace, trying to, win with volume, while Maheshate's looking for that big shot. And Maheshate will win rounds because of the damage that he does. So I think numbers-wise, yeah, Gage Young's going to look better against Maheshate. But if you're like, but as you're watching the bout, Maheshate's kind of winning because what he's doing is stinging Gage Young a lot more than what Young is doing to Maheshate. So I'm going to go with the Chinese fighter here. This is going to send China to 3-2 on this card for us. I believe Maheshate's going to win the bout. I think he's going to take it by decision. If it's a close fight, too, we're in China. Probably goes Maheshate's way. Just be honest. He doesn't train in China anymore, though. He's training out of Kazakhstan. But I believe Maheshate is going to pick up the victory. I'm going to take him to win the fight by unanimous decision. I believe he hits harder than Gage Young. Gage Young will try to pour it on with volume, while Maheshate's just going to try to win based off damage. And we score fights based off damage. At least that's how they should be. I'm going Maheshate to win the bout by unanimous decision. We move on now to the main card, and we kick things off in the main card with a huge favorite, Kiefer Crosbie taking on Talike Nueraji. I believe I got that. Super Saiyan is his nickname. He is a huge favorite to beat Kiefer Crosbie. For reference on Tapology, 96% of voters are going with Nueraji to win, 4% on the flip side going with Crosbie. It's kind of because Crosbie is a 35-year-old welterweight in the UFC who is yet to win. He's 0-2. But also, the Chinese fighter here, Nueraji, is hyped. He is, right? Coming off of winning, I believe, 8 straight fights? 6 straight fights. Did not have to fight on the road to the UFC. Was booked to fight on the road to the UFC early in the year. They just forgot. They took out the road to the UFC for Nueraji. He's coming straight to the promotion, taking on Kiefer Crosbie on the main card. There's a reason he's here. All right, there's a reason he is on the main card. It tells me that the UFC expected Nueraji to probably win the road to the UFC. They expected him to be here anyway, and he got injured. They said, all right, we're just going to sign you anyway. There's a reason he's on the main card, and there's a reason he's fighting Kiefer Crosbie, who, I don't want to call him a can, but has not looked good in his 2 fights in the UFC. Crosbie is yet to make it out of a first round in the promotion, and obviously he's been finished in both of those bouts. His first fight back in Australia at UFC 293, he got submitted in the first round by Kevin Jusay. Jusay is now fighting the Lazy King in PFL Europe in about a month. Kiefer Crosbie then fights Sam Patterson. Patterson submits him in the first round with an arm triangle. Now, Kiefer Crosbie will get to fight his fight, though. He will. And the UFC has thrown him somewhat of a bone. He gets to fight Nueraji, who just wants to strike. Nueraji's not going to grapple him, right? In 11 victories, the Chinese fighter has 10 knockouts and 1 submission. He's not going to grapple, even though 2 fights ago he did win by armbar. He's going to try to knock you out. And again, that's why he's on the main card. That's why this fight's in the main card. It's because the UFC expects a knockout. Even though Crosbie doesn't have to deal with any grappling here, I don't think it's going to go too much better for him in this fight, personally. I just look at what Crosbie did outside the UFC. Other than his win over Alex Oliveira, yes, Cowboy Oliveira, who he beat in April of 2023 to get into the UFC, his regional scene run was not good. He fought in Bellator, Kiefer Crosbie did, lost to Charlie Leary, lost to an old Gorgi Karahanyan, and then comes out after that, wins against a 6-12 fighter. Not impressed. I've never been impressed with Kiefer Crosbie. He's been subbed really quickly in his first 2 bouts, and he's just old. He's 35. You're not getting that much better at 35. He's an SBG Ireland guy, but you're not getting that much better at this point of your career, and you're taking on a young, hungry, up-and-coming guy who's looking to put your lights out. I just don't think it goes very well for Kiefer Crosbie, honestly. I think Nueraji, I think, will knock him out pretty early in the fight. Everything that I've seen out of Nueraji, right, very good power. Fights for him barely leave the first round. His only loss ever is back in December of 2021 to Mang Ding. Mang Ding, a fighter who just fought in the Contender Series last year against Rami Hamed. Ding, I guess, is booked in Uriah Faber's promotion, but that's, again, an accomplished guy, I would say. Ding is 34-9, and that was, Talike's only loss back in 2021, right? Since then, 6 consecutive victories to get to this point. I believe he's going to beat Kiefer Crosbie, and I don't think the fight's going to last very long just because I don't think Crosby's that great. Yes, he's been submitted really quickly. Who's to say if he fought strikers in that time frame as well, he wouldn't have been knocked out early. Just not that great of a fighter at 35 years of age. We've seen him finish time and time. Like Charlie Leary dominated him back in Bellator in 2020. I know it's a while ago, but it's not like this guy's got, oh, he's just a pure striker. If you can get him on the feet, if he's on the feet, he's trouble. It doesn't really work like that with Kiefer Crosbie. He's better up there, but he's not some monster. I'm going to go with the Chinese fighter here in Talike Nueraji to win the fight against Kiefer Crosbie. I'm going to go with him in his UFC debut to win the fight by first round knockout. Let's go on to our next fight, and we move to a matchup in the flyweight division. Sumudaerji is back. Oh, by the way, China's now what, 4-2? 4-2? I think. Wait, no. Yes, 4-2. Yeah, 4-2. Okay. We go on to our next fight. Sumudaerji is back in the flyweight division. He's going to be taking on Kevin Borjas in this one. This fight gets a very high placement on this card because Sumudaerji fights are actually, fairly entertaining. They are. Sumudaerji fights are fun. His last fight, he fought off Mitch Raposo, who was just trying to wrestle him the entire time. Sumudaerji actually did damage in the fight. Sumudaerji got the victory back in Miami in April of this year. He was coming off losing three straight fights. Sumudaerji at one point in time was ranked because he had beaten Malcolm X. Gordon and Zruk Adishev. So he said, you know what? Rank the guy. He loses to Matt Schnell in one of the best fights you're ever going to watch and one of the greatest comebacks you're ever going to watch. But Sumudaerji couldn't knock out Matt Schnell when he had Matt Schnell dead to rights, and he couldn't put him away. Yikes. He loses to Tim Elliott after that, gets subbed in the first round, and then Charles Johnson, who, again, we talked about earlier, beat him by decision. He's coming off a win over Mitch Raposo. I guess Sumudaerji's just really big in China. That's why he's on the main card. I don't know. I think this is a difficult fight for him, man. Kevin Borjas, 1-2 in the UFC, but coming off of the best fight, I would say, of his career, beating Ronaldo Rodriguez in his last fight. Winning the fight by unanimous decision. Rodriguez had the promotional backing. He fought on the main card of the Sphere card on Noche last year against Ode Osborne, a fight that they robbed Ode Osborne in. It's a theme. They robbed Ode Osborne against Steve Erceg. They robbed him against Ronaldo Rodriguez. It's ridiculous. I am joking slightly with the Erceg thing, even though I still believe Ode should have won the fight. It's okay. Borjas, best win of his career, right? Against Ronaldo Rodriguez, he's fighting for the contract in Mexico. He beats Rodriguez, and he wins every single round against Rodriguez. Outpaces him, outvolumes him, knocks down Rodriguez in the first round, doesn't let Rodriguez take him down as Rodriguez goes 1 for 5 on his takedowns. An absolutely dominant victory for Borjas in a fight that he was he wasn't that big of an underdog, and he was a plus 150 underdog, okay? Plus 150, that's a good cash for Kevin Borjas. I, for one, did not have him winning that fight, but it's okay. His first 2 fights in the UFC were difficult. Josh Van's always a tough fight. That's a difficult one to get. And then Alessandro Costa, that's a stylistically difficult fight. Costa, it is. Borjas got his contract in the Contender Series, beat Victor Diaz, but now 1-2 in the UFC for the Peruvian fighter in Kevin Borjas. He's going to get Sumudaerji here, who's had a lot of experience in the UFC and who's 4-4. I don't know. I'm not impressed with Sumudaerji. But this is the type of fight that Sumudaerji can win because Sumudaerji's a horrible grappler. He's so bad down there. Like, look how easily Tim Elliott subbed that guy. And right, you look at Sumudaerji, you just look at the wins that he has, right? Wins/losses, right? 13 wins by knockout, 0 losses by knockout. Submissions, 1 submission victory, 6 losses. That's how you beat the guy. Matt Schnell subbed him. Tim Elliott subbed him. Now, Charles Johnson went out there and outstruck Sumudaerji, but you barely see Charles Johnson shoot takedowns. He shot takedowns against Sumudaerji because it was right there. I wonder, does Borjas have that in the back pocket? We haven't seen it yet. He hasn't shot a takedown in the UFC just yet, so we don't know if he's got that in his bag at all. If there was ever a fight to try it, I would try to get Sumudaerji. Sumudaerji is pretty big for the weight class, right? He is 5'8". He feels like he's just, I guess his frame just feels like he's taller than that. But he's going to be bigger than Borjas, right? Sumudaerji 5'8", Borjas 5'5". I don't mind the fight at all for Borjas, guys. I don't think Sumudaerji's that good. I don't think he is. His striking's all right. But, I mean, again, it's Charles Johnson obviously outstruck him, did more damage in the fight. I just feel like if Borjas has any sense of grappling, he's going to win. I don't know if he does. And I think on the feet, it's a tightly contested fight. But for that alone, I am going to side with Borjas. Because, okay, on the feet, I think it's tight. I think it's a lot tighter than you think. Borjas drops Ronaldo Rodriguez. Ronaldo Rodriguez, right, primarily a wrestler, but can strike too. So, again, Borjas, I guess, if in a pure striking fight he's supposed to win, but that's, again, an impressive victory. To go out there and knock down a guy who, again, the UFC had thought very highly of. They thought he was going to be a star for them at 125 pounds. Obviously, a Mexican star for them at 125 pounds. They put him on the Sphere Noche main card for a reason against O'Day, in a winnable fight, by the way. And Borjas puts him down and dominantly wins a decision. Again, it's a step up against Sumudaerji, don't get me wrong, but that alone, right, on the feet, I think they're close. Sumudaerji doesn't have the most power. Put down Matt Schnell, couldn't put him out, obviously, but everyone can knock down Matt Schnell. And then knock down Malcolm Gordon back in 2020. Malcolm Gordon was horrendous in his short UFC tenure before his retirement. I think Borjas is very close with Sumudaerji on the feet, and again, if Borjas has any sense of grappling, he should go to it, and he should look to wrestle Sumudaerji, because it will be there. I'm going Kevin Borjas to win the fight by unanimous decision. I think it is great value here on the fighter from Peru, just for the sense that, again, Sumudaerji's not that good, and Borjas is coming off of the best win of his career. I believe Borjas is going to get it by unanimous decision. I think this fight's really close on the feet, and if it goes to the ground, I believe Borjas is going to see a lot of success. So give me El Gallo Negro, Kevin Borjas, to win the fight by unanimous decision. That's the nickname over the Eagle, Sumudaerji, yes. Give me Kevin Borjas to win the fight by unanimous decision. What does his nickname mean? El Gallo Negro. That's El Gallo, isn't that Rooster? Isn't that like Jake, his nickname is the Black Rooster? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I barely took Spanish. I switched to French eventually, but I think that's what that is. Give me the Black Rooster, Kevin Borjas, to win the fight by unanimous decision. Is his nickname the Black Cock? Okay, I'll stop. Sorry. Anyways. Okay. Borjas by decision. Okay. Our featured fight of the night. Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta. This is a good featured fight, right? Waldo was rumored to fight Taliesin Teixeira late last month, early this month, to replace, the main event that was Tatsuro Taira and Miguel Bossi. Obviously ended up being Tatsuro Taira versus Park. Anyways, Waldo Cortes-Acosta back in the spot against Sergey Pavlovich. Good for Waldo, man. Good for Salsa Boy. He's worked his way all the way into a top 5 fight in the UFC, and if he wins, there will be discussion about a title shot. He won't get it, but Waldo is legitimately 2 fights away from the title. Wins this one, gets a fight against a Volkov Almeida loser, and potentially, or gets a Derek Lewis, you are in the title picture. Can he beat Pavlovich? I'm telling you, I think Waldo actually kind of has the style to do so, because the way Waldo fights, and I'm not telling you I'm going to pick Waldo yet, the way Waldo fights, it is a fight style that can beat Pavlovich. It's, okay, I'm going to use my jab, but I'm going to use my leg kicks effectively, and I'm going to try to kick your legs out the entire time. And I am going to throw that straight right. He was successful in the Sergey Pavlovich fight. Waldo, it depends. Some fights he throws a lot of leg kicks, some fights he doesn't. But the Ryan Spann fight was really impressive. He knocks out Ryan Spann, and Waldo hasn't gotten the most knockouts in the UFC like we saw him get in, outside the UFC in LFA and on the Contender. But the Sergey Spivak bout, that's impressive because of the fact too of how Pavlovich beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik. It's a bad fight, and there's a reason, right? They cut Rozenstruik. Should they have? No. Rozenstruik should not have been cut from the UFC. But there's a reason he was, because of how bad that fight was. Also, Rozenstruik got robbed in the, it was the Tai Tuivasa fight, right? No, he did beat Tai Tuivasa. Okay, they tried to rob him in the Tai Tuivasa fight. Yeah, they cut this guy winning 2 of 3. It's ridiculous. The Pavlovich fight was bad, don't get me wrong, because we were promised, a knockout on the other side, and instead it was a hesitant striking bout that Pavlovich won every single round in, and he actually wrestled Rozenstruik quite a bit. So I bring the wrestling up because, Waldo Cortes-Acosta suffers a lot of takedowns from Sergey Spivak in his last fight and wins a fight that a lot of people did not expect Salsa Boy to go out there and win. It's an impressive victory in his last one for Cortes-Acosta, who does throw some good strikes, he does stay on the outside, and he doesn't get hit that much. There is a potential for him to beat Sergey Pavlovich. The other layer, though, to this is this just a levels fight? And I do actually believe it is. Waldo's best win is Sergey Spivak. You can make the case who has Pavlovich beaten, and I did make that case a lot going in the Rozenstruik fight. He does have a win over Curtis Blades. He has knocked out Derek Lewis, and the Rozenstruik win, say what you want about Rozenstruik, no longer in the UFC, that is relatively impressive, right? Pavlovich still hits like a truck. That's not gone. The Volkov fight wasn't good for him at all, right? Volkov really showed that there were levels in that, and I think, Volkov is considered to be on a higher tier than Pavlovich, and there's a reason Pavlovich is fighting guys like a Rosenstruck, like a Waldo Cortes-Acosta, and instead Volkov is fighting in, title eliminators against Jaitan Almeida. But Pavlovich still does hit very hard, right? The losses to Aspinall and Volkov, they suck, obviously, but Aspinall's the champion and Volkov's a fight away from the world championship, right? So those aren't bad losses when you really think about it. Pavlovich still is very hard. Look at the Curtis Blades fight. Look at the Derek Lewis fight. Look at the Tai Tuivasa fight. Waldo has not fought anybody just like this yet. And Waldo's one loss in the UFC is against Marcos Rodrigo de Lima in a fight that I thought Waldo probably should have gotten. I think so. I think Waldo probably gets the second and the third rounds. I know, de Lima's got a lot of control in the second round. De Lima does nothing in terms of output in the second round. He does not try to strike at all, Or even when he gets the takedown, de Lima does nothing to damage Waldo Cortes-Acosta. So I look at this fight between Pavlovich and Cortes-Acosta, again, I think Waldo's good. I feel like there's levels here. I feel like he's going to make a mistake. I could be wrong, and Waldo could just be, on this ascent to the title, which I don't see happening. He hasn't fought anybody on the Sergey Pavlovich level yet. Pavlovich does still have very good striking, and Pavlovich, here's the thing. Waldo is able to stay on the outside a lot in his fights because he's always got a huge reach advantage. He has a huge reach for heavyweight. He does. 78-inch reach at 6'4". He's a big guy for the weight class. Pavlovich is 6'3" and has 84-inch reach. And it didn't look that way, obviously, in the Volkov fight because of how huge Volkov is. But that's an anomaly, right? Sergey, if he wants to fight the fight that Cortes-Acosta usually fights, he probably can. And at the same time, he can probably damage and knock out Cortes-Acosta too. I think Pavlovich is going to win because I do believe, right, once we get down into it, Cortes-Acosta is going to have trouble fighting his game against Sergey Pavlovich. He's going to have trouble staying on the outside, avoiding damage, and just, firing his one in that, they call it, the fastball right hand he throws. He's just going to have trouble fighting range, I believe, against Pavlovich, because Pavlovich is just unlike every fighter he's fought so far. And unlike a Sergey Spivak, Pavlovich, is not just a pure grappler, right? He can do more than that, obviously, right? Pavlovich is a boxer. He's not Ryan Spann, who doesn't have a chin, and it's not like, he's a long, lanky guy like Robel is to Spain, but it's not like Cortes-Acosta is going to wrestle Pavlovich. I don't think. I think that was just a Robel is to Spain decision. So I'm going to go with Sergey Pavlovich to beat Waldo Cortes-Acosta. I think eventually he's going to find that shot. I'm going to go second round knockout for Sergey Pavlovich. I think it's going to take a little bit, but I think eventually he will find it. Once Cortes-Acosta is not going to be able to, once he's not able to find range, I believe he's just going to go for it. I think he's going to uncharacteristically take chances, and I think eventually, yes, Pavlovich is going to find that shot, and Sergey will eventually win the fight by second round knockout. On to the co-main event. In the featherweight division, I thought it was 5 rounds, but I guess they're only doing 3. Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling. I'm really pumped. I mean, if you've been watching the channel, obviously if you've watched Greedo Plays, the main channel, when we used to do our predictions over there, I'm a huge Aljamain Sterling fan. I'm going to try to go into this fight as unbiased as I can, but I legitimately don't see a way Aljamain does not win this fight, okay? And obviously the odds indicate that as well. I'm a little surprised Aljo's such a big favorite, I'll be honest with you. Minus 330 for Sterling is kind of crazy. Ortega coming back at you at around that plus 240 range. I'm okay with it because, I don't see how Aljo loses. I'm just surprised that the public is so in support of Sterling here. The main reasoning is that Aljo should have beat Movsar Evloev. He should have won that fight. All right? Aljo has more control time than Movsar Evloev, and it's a simple rounds 1 and 3 for Aljamain Sterling. He does not win round 2. Aljo wins rounds 1 and 3. You cannot tell me he doesn't. Go back and watch that fight. Aljamain Sterling should be fighting for a world championship right now. But instead, he lost Evloev. I don't know yet. Obviously, I'm recording this before 319, but I don't know who won between Pico and Murphy. Aljo beats both those guys. He just does. I think Murphy's a tougher fight for him. He easily clears Aaron Pico, and I think he beats Leon Murphy as well. But instead, here he is fighting in China against Brian Ortega. He beats Evloev, and I will remain adamant on the fact I don't think anybody can out-wrestle Aljamain Sterling at 145 pounds. Honestly, at 145, at 135 pounds, nobody can out-wrestle this guy other than Merab, but even Merab himself says that Aljo beats him in training all the time. So I don't think anybody can beat Aljamain Sterling at 145 pounds in a wrestling competition. At the same time, in a pure fight, I don't know who can beat Aljamain Sterling in general still. I don't know. He is 36, and he's only getting older, and that's why it sucked that he lost the Evloev fight, because that was his ticket to a world championship fight, and ultimately he didn't get that. Aljo is still 2 fights away from a title shot. He's going to need to win this one. I think there might be a rematch with Evloev in his future if he wins this. We'll get to that in a second. But Aljo needs to take care of business here against Brian Ortega. He's going to. Here's the thing. Brian Ortega, great jiu-jitsu, obviously, right? T-City. His striking, it is what it is. And I think Aljo actually has some very underrated striking, even though I think Aljo is just going to wrestle this entire fight. A lot will be said about Brian Ortega's grappling and his jiu-jitsu, because it is great. But here's the thing. What has separated a guy like Aljamain Sterling from a guy like Brian Ortega, I know they fought in different weight classes in their prime, but what has separated them throughout their careers is that Brian Ortega at 145 pounds has never been able just to go out there and out-wrestle guys to get himself in a position that he wants to win the fight in terms of he's not able just to take guys down so he can grapple, right? It's few and far in between. Ortega has that jiu-jitsu, but getting the takedowns is the problem for him. The reason why Aljamain Sterling, who is a jiu-jitsu guy, has been so successful and is one of the greatest of all time and will be a Hall of Famer one day, as he's considered, I believe, the second best bantamweight of all time, just passed by Merab, is because of the wrestling. It's world-class wrestling. Out of Aljamain Sterling, it's world-class to the point that he just beat Evloev in his last fight, and he got robbed in that bout, okay? Aljamain Sterling, that's why he was able to win world championships, because the jiu-jitsu is on a level of Brian Ortega. I believe Sterling's jiu-jitsu is that good. Human backpack for a reason. Nobody can, it's hard to just purely out-grapple this guy. It just is. Not to mention, he's stronger than Brian Ortega, he's bigger than Brian Ortega, and he's a better wrestler than Brian Ortega. Striking-wise, I think it's close. Ortega looked horrible in the feet in his last fight, albeit because he got knocked out, essentially, in the first 30 seconds against Diego Lopez. He came to as Lopez was trying to hit him more. But Ortega looked like crap on the feet in his last fight. The Yair fight, he wins because Yair has 0 grappling, and the fact that they still might give him a title shot is an absolute joke. Like, I don't think the highest of Aaron Pico beats Yair Rodriguez. Aljamain Sterling mops the floor with Yair, and I think that's the fight that should be next, but we'll talk about that later. Brian Ortega has not looked good in a while in the UFC. On the feet, I believe Aljamain Sterling can outstrike him. Will Aljo strike with Ortega? No. There's no reason to. There's no reason to. Ortega's jiu-jitsu has never been tested. It hasn't. It's good, and it's better than a lot of these guys. Like, I will give credit. Like, it's better than Max Holloway's jiu-jitsu, even though the fight was really never on the ground. He's got better jiu-jitsu probably than Alexander Volkanovski, right? He's got better jiu-jitsu than Yair Rodriguez. That's great. It's better than Renato Moicano when he beat him in 2017. It has never been tested against the likes of a world-class jiu-jitsu player and world-class championship-level jiu-jitsu fighter in terms of UFC champion. Aljamain Sterling. It's never been tested. And he's never been tested to the point where he's just going to get mauled wrestling-wise. Because trust me, Aljo will maul him. He will. Aljamain Sterling is going to be all over, Brian Ortega in this fight. He's going to be on his ass. Again, pause. That's an Aljo reference. He's going to be all over him this entire fight, and I just don't know what Ortega's going to be able to do. Because Ortega's not going to be stronger than Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling is built, he's a unit at 145 pounds. You know how much weight that guy was cutting to get down to 135 pounds? He's still a massive human being at 145. And again, he out-wrestled Movsar Evloev, who's looked at as like, oh, he's the kind of boogeyman of 145. Oh, where's my title shot? Well, you don't fight. You turn down, you had to withdraw from an Aaron Pico fight. Like, okay. You know? Aljo out-wrestled that guy. He's going to out-wrestle Brian Ortega. And Ortega, like, yeah, he's got good jiu-jitsu. I'll give him credit there. I don't think he's going to be able to, I don't think he's going to find anything off his back against Sterling. Sterling's seen that, done that. I think Aljo might be able to take Ortega's back just because, again, we have not seen Brian Ortega just put on his back and have to get up. Just because, again, T-City's never been in that type of position, really, in the UFC against such a high-level guy. I think Ortega's going to make mistakes. I think he's going to. Because he's just going to be overwhelmed with the wrestling. Sure, Ortega can get back up. He can do that all he wants. He's going to get immediately taken back down. Ortega's wrestling's never tested because it's like trying to take down Mackenzie Dern. Why would you take her down? Why would you take down Brian Ortega? You don't want to be in that guy's guard. Aljamain Sterling doesn't care. Aljamain Sterling's seen that, done that. He's got jiu-jitsu. He trusts in his own BJJ. And he's got the wrestling to back it up. it's a no-brainer for Aljamain Sterling here, and that's why I believe he wanted this fight, because he's just the all-around more complete fighter. He's the all-around better fighter than Brian Ortega, and obviously, right, that's why one of these guys won a world championship and defended world championships, and the other guy has just been a top 5 guy his entire career. Ortega's 34. Aljo just turned 36. That is the one thing that concerns me a little bit with Aljamain Sterling. He's not getting any younger, and that's why the final title push begins right now. It's this fight. He's going to win by decision. He's going to out-wrestle Brian Ortega. He's going to win 30-27. It's going to look kind of like the Calvin Kattar fight, I believe. And then I believe it's a Yair Rodriguez fight. I think it's a Yair Rodriguez fight at the end of the year where he will be fighting for a championship, you know, in the summer of 2025. I believe that's what this is going to be. I want Aljo to turn around for December. I want him to be on the final pay-per-view card of the year. Feature bout against Yair Rodriguez. Hell, let's make it 5 rounds. That helps Aljo even more. I believe the winner of, unless it was just a horrible fight, which I don't know yet, Pico Murphy winner is still getting Volk. Give me Aljo versus Yair Rodriguez. If Yair beats Aljo, then I will say he deserves a title shot. Coming off of one win over Patricio Pitbull does not warrant a title fight. You're thinking, oh, what's happening to Mosvar? Well, Mosvar doesn't fight, okay? Mosvar doesn't fight. He can fight the winner of Diego Lopez and John Silva, okay? He can do that. And maybe you get a title challenger out of that as well. That's Aljo's fight, okay? That's Aljo's fight. Even though, like, why isn't Diego Lopez fighting Yair? Like, why didn't they do that? Anyways, I don't care. Timelines work better this way. Aljo, Yair, December, make it happen. Sterling beats Ortega by decision. On to our main event. Like, this is my main event. You know, this fight, Aljo, Brian, Ortega. This is cool, I guess. Just, we know what the UFC's doing. You know, we all do. If you watch the sport, you know what's going to happen here. Or at least you know what the UFC wants to happen. It's MMA, right? You know, Matt Serra knocked out GSP. Like, anything can happen, obviously. But Mingyang, Zhang, and I can't believe I just referenced it's Matt Serra, GSP, and Johnny Walker versus Mingyang, Zhang, but here we are. Obviously, Mingyang Zhang is a massive favorite in his home country to beat Johnny Walker, as he should. I thought Johnny Walker was going up to heavyweight. Why is he still here? Johnny Walker's been knocked out in back-to-back fights at light heavyweight, and you book him against a guy who does nothing but knock people out? Really? Why? It was like when Mingyang Zhang beat Anthony Smith in Nebraska? It was like, or in Kansas City? It was like, really? You're gonna throw him in against this guy? Mingyang Zhang's really good. He is. Now, is he a world championship fighter? Probably not. Like, I think he loses to a Yuri. I think he loses, obviously, to Ankalaev. I think he's never gonna fight Pereira, so who cares? I think Khalil beats him. Yeah, I believe Khalil beats him as well. Like, higher level guys, Jamal Hill be interesting, actually. I think I'd take Mingyang Zhang to probably beat Jamal Hill. But right, those fights, like, those are tougher fights for Mingyang Zhang. A Johnny Walker who's ranked like 10th, 11th doesn't really concern me for Mingyang Zhang at all. Just because Walker's chin's gone. And I know what you're thinking, oh, well, will heavyweight really fix that? No, but Johnny Walker is just, he is an actual athlete, mixed martial arts fighter, who has athletic bones in his body. He could compete at 265. I'm not telling you he'd be a champion, but Shamil Gaziv's ranked number like 9th or 10th in the weight class. And I like Gaziv, right? Shout out to Shamil. That's the reason Jones retired, right? But like, there are very winnable fights for Johnny Walker in the top 15 at heavyweight instead of fighting absolute units like Mingyang Zhang at 205. This is just extremely difficult. Mingyang Zhang knocks out everybody he fights. 4 fights so far into the UFC banner. First fight's a Tuco Tokos victory. Beats Brendan Sinibeto by first round knockout. By the way, the Tokos won his first round knockout as well. Knocks out Ozzy Diaz in the first round, and then finishes Anthony Smith in the first round. And Anthony Smith's retirement fight, where they gave him a whole tribute package, right? What a night, man. I was emotional watching that. Man, I don't know. That or Lauren Murphy's retirement. Which one? I don't know which one hit harder. They're both really difficult, man. I just, ooh, you hate to see it sometimes. Anyways, like Mingyang Zhang dominated Anthony Smith. Johnny Walker, back-to-back losses by knockout to Magomed Ankalaev, and then Volkan knocks him out. Volkan is still decent at this age, but man, Ozdemir drops him twice in the span of 2 minutes, and Ozdemir eventually knocks him out with an uppercut. Johnny Walker hasn't won a fight since May of 2023 in Charlotte, North Carolina against Anthony Smith. That was a fight where Johnny Walker was beating Anthony Smith's ass, and Anthony Smith says, "So now you're attacking my family?" And Johnny Walker goes, "Huh? What?" Hilarious fight. Johnny Walker beat the shit out of Anthony Smith in that fight too. Like a lot of Anthony Smith fights where, again, What a warrior. I hope they put him in the Hall of Fame. He's a marauder, you know? Johnny Walker has not won fights since May of 2023. He's not beating Mingyang Zhang, who's on the run of his career in Mingyang Zhang's home country? Come on. Like, we all know what's happening here. Mingyang Zhang will knock out Johnny Walker in the first round. Unfortunately. Unfortunately for Johnny Walker, that's just what's going to happen. Johnny Walker needs to go up. Absolutely needs to go up to 265. There's nothing for him anymore at 205. He gets hit too easily. I believe the chin is kind of gone. He's been knocked out 6 times. And again, would heavyweight help that? No, but he needs a change of scenery. He's been knocked out 6 times, and obviously it all came crashing down after he lost to Corey Anderson. If he had beaten Corey Anderson, there's a chance he would have fought John Jones. I'm sure that would have gone great for him. But knocked out by Corey Anderson, knocked out by Jamal Hill, knocked out by Magomed Ankalaev, knocked out by Volkan Oezdemir. He hasn't beaten a high-ranked guy ever. Johnny Walker's been in the top 10. He's gotten huge fights like Volkan, like Ankalaev, like Jamal Hill, like Thiago Santos. Lost all those fights. His best wins are Paul Craig, Anthony Smith, Ion Cutelaba, Ryan Spann, and Misha Serkinov. And Khalil Roundtree back in 2018 in his first ever UFC fight. If they fought again, that fight would not be competitive. My point being, Johnny Walker is not at a top level anymore. He's not at a top 10 level anymore. Mingyang Zhang has too much power for Johnny Walker, and I don't know how Johnny Walker is going to be able to compete here. I'm taking Mingyang Zhang to knock out Johnny Walker in the first round. It's unfortunate, but Walker just gets hit too easily. Sure, he stands a puncher's chance. I understand that. But Mingyang Zhang has been an absolute monster so far in the UFC. He has not lost a fight since October of 2019. He's on a run, and that run will continue again with the first round knockout win over Johnny Walker. So give me Mingyang Zhang in the main event. Folks, thank you all for watching our UFC Fight Night Shanghai predictions from China. Johnny Walker, Mingyang Zhang in the main event, Brian Ortega, and Aljamain Sterling in the co-main event. If you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for our PFL predictions, Tuesday with the Contender Series, Wednesday with the Road to the UFC, and Thursday with our UFC China Best Bets. Make sure to stay tuned to the channel all week long. Main channel, Greedo Plays College Football MLB. Folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba, forever.